Sense, everybody. I'm Wendy Bell. You know, it's stunning to monitor the media's lack of interest in the whole Maui story. I've been in this business for 30 years. I'm stunned, but I'm not surprised. The dots are connecting, and coincidence seems to be the story here, right? But the true story, the media knows it is not allowed to tell, but I can. Is it a coincidence that the Maui police chief is the same man who was in charge in Las Vegas during that massacre that killed 58 people? Is it a coincidence that the Maui property, owned by million and billionaires, wasn't touched by the flames while homes of the locals all burned? Was it a coincidence that the flames traveled across hundreds of feet of pavement and crossed a 4-lane highway with emergency shoulders to jump into the ocean and then burn all the boats? Was it a coincidence that the largest system of outdoor emergency sirens in the world never made a sound as the fire devoured Lahaina? Was it a coincidence that at the same time, very same time, all the water was turned off? Was it a coincidence that police were ordered to block off streets and to funnel all the cars trying to escape onto one road where that firestorm incinerated entire families? How about the coincidence that the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, just weeks before that inferno, signed a pledge to the UN's 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development, pledging to eliminate emissions? Weird. And think about this coincidence. That governor also signed an emergency proclamation on July 17th, 3 weeks before the fire, about housing of all things, and suspended 7 state statutes protecting historic preservation laws, removing all of the red tape when it comes to building infrastructure. Coincidentally, that emergency proclamation also suspends previous building laws and gives the governor some magic wand power to appoint a housing czar to rule on the island's redevelopment. Is it a coincidence that the government put up a black fence around Lahaina, or that the FAA grounded all drones from flying over the affected areas? Is it a coincidence that since at least 2011 there have been plans to make Maui the first smart city run by 100% renewable energy, and that coincidentally 2 of the 3 largest landowners on Maui are BlackRock and the U.S. government, and that both are part of the UN's agenda? It must be a coincidence then that the locals whose homes did not burn are now being evicted from their property. And of course, a total coincidence that all the fact checkers who are checking these facts, who say everything I just told you is just a coincidence, are also owned and run by BlackRock. Thank goodness none of these coincidences is connected. I'm Wendy Bell. I'll see you next time for more Common Sense.
Us as a company buyer in cell and gene therapy, which to me is one of these examples where really we're going to make a difference, hopefully, moving forward. There's some, ultimately the mRNA vaccines are an example for that cell and gene therapy. I always like to say, if we had surveyed 2 years ago in the public, would you be willing to take gene or cell therapy and inject it into your body, we would have probably had a 95% refusal rate. I think this pandemic has also opened many people's eyes to innovation in the way that was maybe not possible before.
Well, the elite press practices ruthless censorship of any. I'll give you 3 anecdotes for what it's worth. One time in the 90s, I was, around the time of the Jordan Commission, an editor at the New York Times op-ed page solicited me to do a piece on the, downsides of mass immigration. She got a phone call from the publisher complaining, why is she running all of these anti-immigration op-eds? Well, it turns out the ratio is like 3 to 1 pro and con. Right?
But even that was too much.
Yeah, she soon was no longer working at the op-ed page. When I was a staff writer at the New Yorker, I quoted a previous generation of New Republic liberals who'd made the case that you can't have a welfare state and open borders, something that Milton Friedman famously agreed with. One of my colleagues in the next issue devoted a long article denouncing me, saying that his grandmother was an immigrant, Ellis Island, et cetera. I said, well, yeah, my great-grandmother's an immigrant. That's not an argument. Marty Peretz, the publisher of the New Republic, then compelled me to join him at an event at the Holocaust Museum with a bunch of pro-immigration activists, at which an obviously doctored photo was distributed of a 12-year-old girl from Cuba fleeing on a boat. And in this obviously doctored photo, we were told that she was playing the violin, playing God Bless America as she sank beneath the waves. So I kind of got my point, got the point of that.
Wow.
A few years later, a leading liberal magazine asked me to come up with 5 or 6 proposals, what you could do to drive up wages. So most of them, you know, greater union bargaining power. So one of them was less unskilled immigration. So the editor told me, I can't publish anything critical of immigration in this magazine. I'll get in trouble with the publisher.
Eternity isn't some later time. Eternity isn't a long time. Eternity has nothing to do with time. Eternity is that dimension of here and now, which thinking in time cuts out.
This is it.
This is
my...
If you don't get it here, you won't get it anywhere. And the experience of eternity right here and now is the function of life.
Question and commentaire, questions and comments. The honourable member for Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I listened to my colleague's speech. I had a constituent that wanted me to ask a question about outside interference to our democracy. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum, and he bragged how his subversive WEF, World Economic Forum, has, quoted, infiltrated governments around the world. He said that his organization had penetrated more than half of Canada's cabinet. And I was wondering, in the interest of transparency, could the member please name which cabinet ministers are on board with the WEF's agenda? My concern is the deputy.
Order. I know that the member was in a really good question there, but the audio is really bad and the video is really bad as well. And I apologize. I don't know if the member. Okay, let's try again. The honourable member for Timmins James Bay.
Mr. Speaker, that member was promoting open disinformation. That's not debate. We have to call out disinformation.
We'll get into debate again. The honourable member, questions and comments. The honourable member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just thank you to my honourable colleague.
White people are incapable of dealing with social shame. Genetically because of winters. You get kicked out of a village in the winter, you die. Because as we're seeing now with white retards, anybody that just calls you bigot, racist, homophobe on fucking Facebook, a platform that hates you, you will shut down and change your opinion and go quiet and get scared and put on your fancy pants. And it's a genetic problem. It's because of winter. The same force that made whites smart. You know how to prepare for winter, how to hoard food and not just eat it right away, lower impulse control, less violent crime, shit like that. That same factor has a negative. That ostracism is death. So when people can weaponize ostracism, social media, all this shit, academia, what do white people do? They shut down. They can't help themselves. They just go, I don't want to be called a name. The genetic selection would be the people that understood saving, understood trust, commonality, working together, preparing, enduring all that shit. They survived, and the ones who died, but also the ones that submitted to social consensus. The ones who went against social consensus, they all died. The ones who ate up all their food too fast, all died. So the trap of the white man is social shame. And it's been weaponized to a degree that's staggering. And whites have no ability to fight it, apparently.